Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit different. Before, we've just been building the PCs itself and just the components acquired for the PC to function, but now we're going to be building the entire setup, including the monitor, the case, the CPU cooler, the mouse, the keyboard, everything. And yeah, basically literally everything. If you get everything in this, you won't need to get anything else for the build. Now, I am going to suggest upgrading some of the components because we're going to be cheaping out on some stuff to stay in this $600 budget, but technically you won't need to buy anything else because everything, including the monitor, even if you don't have a monitor, is going to be included because this is a full setup. So starting off with the CPU cooler, we're going for the Corsair A70. A bit older, but CPU and motherboard we're going for is also older. So we're going for the E5-2660 for our CPU. And for 14, you can't really complain. Okay. So now we need an LGA 2011 motherboard. Because that is an 8-core CPU after all. And that won't bottleneck the graphics card we're going to choose because it's 8 cores. So now we're at 56, and we have a CPU cooler and CPU and motherboard. Okay. So now we need to go for 8 gigabytes of Corsair DDR3 RAM. And we want to go 1600 megahertz. Might seem a bit slow, and the fact that we're going for DDR3 in such an expensive build, but the issue is that we can only really put DDR3 RAM in our PC anyway. Oh, that's tempting. Okay. Now, dual channel really is what you should be going for, but because this is an Intel build, it's not going to benefit as much from dual channel, so we can go single stick, especially because it's DDR3 anyway. So yeah, but I would normally recommend going dual channel for memory by going 2x4 gigs or 2x8 gigs, depending on how much RAM you're getting. Okay. So now for the case, I'm going to go for the Rosewill full ATX case because LGA 2011 is a full ATX motherboard, I believe. So yeah, ATX case. Rosewill is pretty much the cheapest you can go for when buying a case. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have put mid-tower. It's not for cheaper. I'm just gonna look up Rosewill case. So this is micro ATX, so we're gonna choose a different one. Also micro ATX, micro ATX, micro ATX, ATX. Okay, see, yeah, that's how you get good deals. So this is ATX. It's a mini tower, but it's full-size ATX though, because it doesn't say micro ATX. And yeah, $36 for full ATX case that has fans, 2 fans. It's not a DIY case. So yeah. Now for the storage. Okay. Lowest to highest once again. Okay, so we're gonna go 32 gigabytes for the SSD storage in our build because this is just for the system itself. So, obviously, I'm not gonna put any games on those 32 gigabytes. Windows 10 installation takes about 15 gigabytes, I believe. So, yeah, it's just gonna make the OS itself snappy, and those other 15 gigabytes you can use to download your web browser and basic Office applications, but yeah, obviously no games. So for the games, I want to use a 1 terabyte hard drive. So and yeah, $15. Can't complain. Um, yeah, that's for the hard drive. Okay. So now that we have our hard drive, okay, yeah, now that we have our hard drive, now we go for our GPU, obviously the main star of the show. I'm gonna go all out with the GTX 1070 Ti. And you know what? For $400, it's definitely overpriced because of how overpriced GPUs are right now. But this is close to 1080 Ti performance, and we'll get into that at the end. So yeah. So we're at 531. We have a CPU. So now it seems like we have everything PC wise other than the power supply. But we obviously still, even after this, need to get our monitor and keyboard. So, so we need roughly 600 watts for this build because of that power hungry CPU. And we're gonna go reputable for the power supply. Yeah, it's 80 plus, and it's $30. And 600 watts. That's Thermaltake. Okay. So now for the monitor. Okay. So I'm gonna go for, because we have a 1070 Ti, you're gonna wanna get a higher than 60 Hz refresh rate monitor, because I'm assuming you're going to be playing at ultra settings most of the time. Even on ultra settings, if you're playing a lot of esports, you're gonna get more than 60 FPS. So you want at least a 144 Hz monitor. So we're going to go for a 1080p 144 Hz monitor. You can also play at 1440p and even 4K on this GPU, but this is you're prioritizing high refresh rate over resolution, because I feel like that's what the majority of people prioritize. I mean, some people do care more about resolution, but because the 1070 Ti can handle higher than 60 Hz refresh rates at 1080p, I would probably recommend a 144 Hz monitor over getting like a 1440p 60 Hz monitor, if I'm being honest. So yeah. And now, lastly, we just need our keyboard and mouse. Okay. So Razer keyboard and mouse. Oh wait, no, wrong one. So this, I believe, comes with the Black Widow keyboard and the Chroma mouse. So we'll add that. Okay, yeah, we're over budget. This is $600 bill. This is $700 budget territory. So yeah, unfortunately, since I don't think there's anything else we can cheap out on, if I'm being honest, because we need that CPU to power that GPU, and I obviously don't want to downgrade the GPU, and we probably want an SSD in a $600 build, and we also probably want a 144 Hz monitor in a $600 build. So yeah, this is gonna be cutting it close. In all honesty, this is pretty much all I have to work with. Okay. Yeah, I know this is a pretty heavy downgrade. And this isn't even a gaming keyboard and mouse. But for $8, like, we can't really do better at this point. So yeah, and yeah, we definitely went over budget by quite a bit. Total came out to $694, which I know was closer to $700 territory than 600. But I really couldn't compromise on anything, if I'm being honest. Because in a $600 build, you definitely want to have an SSD. I mean, yeah, I could just remove it and it would be a $684 build, but I mean, which is still pretty above 600, but it's at least closer to that radius. But I mean, if you're spending $600, you definitely want to have an SSD. By the way, this is a full setup, not just a $600 build. For a $600 build, I'd be putting in RTX 2060, which I actually did in one of my other builds, but you also have to get the monitor and the keyboard and mouse, and the case, and the CPU cooler. Stuff that we usually don't get in our other builds. So yeah, that made a pretty big difference. Anyway, what I was saying about the GPU, this is why I think this is such a good deal. And also, if you're worried about the CPU bottlenecking that GPU, if you check my 1070 build, it clearly doesn't. So yeah, and the 1070 Ti is a little bit better than a 1070, a little bit worse than a 1080. So that brings me to my next point. I believe the PS5 Series X are similar power level wise to an RTX 2060, and the RTX 2060 is a similar power level to the 1080, and the 1070 Ti is close to the performance of a 1080. It's a little bit worse. So essentially, for $694, you're getting a full build with a 144 hertz monitor and the keyboard and mouse and everything. And if we look at what PS5s are going for, we'll compare it to the digital edition, obviously, because I feel like that PCs are digital, so yeah, that's probably a fair comparison. But yes, 700 basically. So for around the same price as a PS5, we're getting a slightly worse experience, but then again, it's also better in some ways because you don't have to wait for next gen ports. It will always run at its maximum potential, and you're getting a 144 hertz monitor included in the build. Yeah, that is a pretty big deal. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the PS5 comes with a 144 hertz monitor. If I'm being honest. And you're getting the versatility of a full PC. So, comparing it to next gen consoles, it actually doesn't seem too bad, even though we definitely overpaid a lot for that 1070 Ti.